And we are going live. We're live.
Hello.
Hello, everyone. It's your boy, the late Lord Haven. What am I today? 4 minutes late. Brilliant. I'm joined for a little bit of the stream by Quinn the GM.
Yes, hello. Welcome, people.
So,
Good to be here.
yeah. So, for everyone watching, I would recommend, as long as I've done this right, jump into the description and click on the Reddit thread that I've linked in there. I'll also put it in the pinned comments for those who aren't watching this live. So on Reddit, someone put a very interesting post. Now, I'm not going to show pictures of that post because there's some ambiguity as to whether we're allowed to do that. So we'll just have the thumbnail up here. You can look at Jester Martin, Moonboy Martin. But the post is called George R. R. Martin's 2003 to 2004 outline for A Feast for Crows. It dropped 5 hours ago by the user Zionius. And they said that the founder of the George R. R. Martin Rarities Facebook group generously shared a 3-page outline for A Feast for Crows back in 2003-2004. So this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn, but this outline, which we're going to be reading through, was planned for, was back when Feast for Crows and Dance with Dragons was essentially one book. Right?
Yeah, that's correct. So looking at it, there are elements in it that are from Feast, and there are elements that are in Dance. And it's interesting because some of them are like pretty much one-to-one what happened. Other things are completely off, and other things still are things that haven't happened yet or wouldn't have happened in the time frame of Dance.
So from what I understand, he wrote the first 3 books. He wanted to do a time skip. He scrapped the time skip and replaced it with Feast for Crows, but then eventually he decided to split Feast itself into 2 books.
Correct. And this does seem to be pretty concretely after he's already scrapped the time skip, because there's a lot of ideas in here that wouldn't work with that.
So before we begin, I'll quickly say Quinn has gone through this and read this. I have not. I actually... I was running late, as usual, and I thought, actually, I'll stay away from it and I'll experience it for the first time here on stream. Like I said, check out the Reddit thread to specifically see the pages. And if you... Quinn will be here for about half an hour or so, and then I'll be continuing and chatting to you guys. And if you have any questions or suggestions or anything, feel free to send a super chat to support the channel. And, of course, subscribe to Quinn the GM if you haven't already, but you probably have. So... without further ado, shall we begin?
Absolutely. So I've read through all of this. I got this message from our late Lord Haven in my civil procedure class and just read through it all there. And it is important to keep in mind when looking at this, it is a draft. We know for a fact that certain things here have changed. But with that said, it is really interesting to see his kind of mindset in what might have changed and how things have evolved, how the garden has grown. If I've not talked about the garden too much in recent videos, I've gotten some comments about that. But as we go through here, we kind of have 2 main sections. We have notes for like individual characters' chapters as like little individual pieces of writing. And then the last page, the 3rd page, deals with essentially broad outlines of what he wants to do or the big beats he wants to hit for, I think it's actually the 5 main characters that he lists in the letter in whatever year that was, 1990. In just kind of a point-by-point what they want to have happen throughout Feast. So, first character here is Daenerys. Did you read any of this?
I basically skimmed over it, the first page, very quickly when I first saw it, and then I stopped and went, okay, I'm going to send this to Quinn and check it out later. So I don't remember anything from it, apart from the names on the side. So shall we... I'm looking at the Daenerys one right now, right at the top.
Yeah, so right off the bat, big theory confirmed. Daenerys is a horse, or at least is pretending she's a horse.
Glidus is going to have a field day with
First one
this
verbatim.
one.
Danny, pretend it's a horse. I believe that's referring to the dragon when she's riding it in the pit.
Okay.
Face off in the pit.
Okay, so, yes.
Yeah, she's not pretending to be a horse.
I was just
as entertaining as that would be.
Divert attention away from Tyrek.
Question mark... Mary, city, battle scene, I'm going home, 1 chapter. So what this looks like to me is, initially, at some point in Martin's drafting, there was a single chapter that was what we got at Desnak's Pit. Then it goes into the Battle of Fire. It happens essentially right afterwards. And then we get the moment from like season 6, episode 10 of like Daenerys going home and actually leaving Meereen. All of that was supposed to be one chapter initially.
I mean, that's depressing, isn't it? The first chapter of Feast for Crows is basically the last, or the penultimate Daenerys chapter from Dance.
Chapter.
Okay.
We'll get into that a little bit when he's looking at the outlines. I think this is like a later part of Feast that he's outlining for these specific chapters. Because we have the Jaime Blackfish chapter, which we have in the actual book, and then a few points later, Brienne ends with the Hound fight, which we'll get to. But he also has the outline below for Daenerys, which we can, I guess, look at a little bit now as well. Outlines 4 major points. Her marriage is kind of the starting point. Then the fall of Astapor, then the siege of Meereen with the bloody flux, and then the dragons loose at the climax, and then marriage again for 4, which is interesting.
Interesting. So
it seems like he intended to start and end Daenerys' story with a wedding.
Interesting. Let's just double check. So
does not say who the wedding is to, but I actually have a little bit of a theory on that.
Before we go into that, I do want to quickly say, it says her marriage at the start. Is that implying that's like the opening of her story, or that it's the main crux of her story? So is she getting married twice? You know, presumably Hizdar Zolorak at the start, and then someone mysterious at the end, or is it saying that in this draft there is no marriage to Hizdar? There's just one marriage, and it's at the end.
And it could be to Hizdar towards the marriage. That is, I could read it either way. What I tend to think is that it starts with the marriage, that she is married to Hizdar initially, and then she's married to somebody else at the end.
Okay, that's interesting. So Fall of Astapor we've seen in Dance with Dragons. Mm-hmm. Siege of
Meereen we've seen in sample chapters.
And then Climax, Dragons Loosed. That seems to imply perhaps in Winds the dragons will be fully let free and wreak havoc.
Yeah, we've already also seen that in the sample chapters with Rhaegon and Viserion just kind of doing whatever.
And then marriage. Yeah. So who do you think, assuming it's not Hizdar Zolorak, who could that final marriage option be, do you think, at the end of her storyline?
I have a less likely and a more likely option in mind. Okay. Less likely, at this point in Martin's drafting, Victarion was supposed to die pretty mid-early Feast. And the person who was going to come to Daenerys in Meereen was Euron, who was attempting to marry Daenerys. I think that overall that could be something that could be there. Maybe she does get married to Euron in this draft. But the thing that I think is more likely is that this kind of solidifies the idea that Tyrion convincing Jon Connington and Aegon to turn back to Westeros might have been kind of Martin convincing himself that this is the way the story was supposed to go. Yeah. Insofar as maybe Aegon and Jon Connington were supposed to get to Meereen. Maybe Aegon was supposed to marry Daenerys. And this thought of mine comes from this bullet point from Tyrion. Witness to incest. In one of the last chapters of Feast, supposedly.
Very
the boat sex from season 7.
Very interesting. So, Daenerys and young Griff hooking up. That is
maybe as some kind of opposition to Jon. Maybe the thought would be that once they arrive on the continent, it would be them versus Jon rather than Aegon and Jon versus Daenerys, at least in this early draft version.
And if we think that young Griff is in fact a Blackfire, I do think that's very likely. Check out my young Griff video if you haven't already. Shameless plug. But would their marriage be, therefore, a real source of conflict for that character?
That is an interesting point.
They're married, they're teaming up together, they're conquering Westeros with the Golden Company and the Dothraki and Unsullied and Sellswords and so on united, but then you have this tension, this friction, this rivalry of, is this person actually my nephew? Is he actually next in line? Or is he a pretender to the throne? And so maybe... Yeah. While some readers predict that the rivalry between Daenerys and young Griff will be very much, army versus army, maybe a dragon fight, something like that. Perhaps the original plan was more domestic, more of a domestic conflict. They're locked in a marriage, maybe they're ruling in King's Landing, and then Daenerys discovers the truth that he's a Blackfire, and then the story unfolds from there, perhaps.
It's also just really funny to me that, boat sex might have been a note from Martin, and they just substituted their Aegon for the correct Aegon.
Genuinely, it's like, how much of this is going to be stuff that we kind of recognize?
Well, this one I think is pretty concretely not going to be. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that was definitely maybe some intention at some point.
But any other marriage possibilities?
Somebody in the chat mentioned Quentin. With both Quentin and Euron, I'm not as sure because the Tyrion witness to incest thing just... I don't know what else that could mean other than Dany and Jon or Dany and Aegon. I mean, Dany and Quentin are like distant cousins, but I don't think that...
Yeah, with the context of witness to incest, I have no idea who else that could be. Because I was thinking, okay, marriage at the end. I haven't checked the rest of the notes, so Victorian? Euron?
I wish it were Victorian. Match made in heaven right there.
Don't see the incest side of that, but shall we...
But we've jumped around a little more than I intended there. So going back up to the top a little bit, Sam, we have a cut chapter, so maybe him getting to the Citadel was not supposed to be the end of his story in Feast initially, but we have no other details on that.
Interesting. Do you reckon
Jamie the only...
Do you reckon as a POV, Sam is going to be cut completely? Sort of, let's wait until the book after where he's already at the Citadel, he's already training, and then dive into it, as opposed to... Maybe George didn't want to... bother writing the in-between bit where he's travelling to Old Town, but then as his writing goes on, as the books go on, they do get more and more ponderous. They do get a lot more specific, where we do see characters moving from A to B. We do see the boat journey from Eastwatch by the Sea all the way to Old Town. But yeah, maybe his plan was to completely cut Sam from this book.
That could be it. I'm more partial to the idea that it is just a single cut chapter because I think he wants to have some elements of the Maesters of Old Town, and I think he wants to circle back to Pate at the very least.
Okay.
Which we'll get to in a second here, but
all right.
Yeah, Jamie Blackfish chapter I think is pretty much just what it ends up being in Feast, the kind of chapter where they parlay outside of Riverrun.
Yeah.
So and then the prologue notes.
I was going to quickly jump in. Would this have been Jamie's first chapter? Are these?
No, so this is. I get the impression this is not in order. We get into like Cersei's
ideas he's throwing out
arrest
on the page
and stuff like that. This is late game dance feast.
Okay. So Blackfish.
So this feast and dance I think are initially supposed to be shorter, and because of that, these are like middle/end of what that book would have been.
Interesting that prologue is placed there. Also,
that is an interesting placement. I think it might go hand in hand with Sam's last cut chapter being the focus on Old Town.
He also looks like he's spelt prologue without the last two letters.
Yeah, probably just abbreviation there. But it is interesting to see the Steele's book, Death of Dragons. That's been a long time fan theory that is what the Faceless Men might be after.
So it says, just for people who aren't necessarily reading along with us, no glass candles. Then it says Pate. Then it says, his handwriting is worse than mine. What does it say? Steele's book.
I'm down below. It says Steele's book, Death of Dragons.
Interesting. So, of course, Pate we know from the... We know that the Feast prologue was written several times over, don't we? From different perspectives. One perspective was even from the... who was it? Was it a...
It was one of the serving girls at that the inn on the island in Old Town. I forget the name of it. But
he settled on Pate, and even his Pate ideas sort of jumped around, didn't they? But in the book, we ended up having, he does a little deal with someone who he doesn't realise is a faceless man, and then he's murdered with the coin, and the faceless man becomes him, takes his identity essentially. Steele's book about the death of dragons. So that is fascinating. Why would the Faceless Men be interested in that? Do we hear about that in the actual published book?
Yeah, we hear about the book. I think Tyrion references it while he's on the Shy Maid, and he's like coming up with all of this dragon lore to give to Griff and young Griff. So I think that the main driving force of this book, it is supposedly the only tome to contain knowledge on how to kill dragons, pretty much, or their weaknesses, or something to that effect. It's also called Blood and Fire, which Martin has said might be the name of the second half. There has been some thought, and there has been a lot of speculation by fans that this might be what the Faceless Men are trying to get in the Citadel, as we have that whole monologue in Feast about them being initially slaves from Valyria who brought death to the masters and supposedly are working against maybe the forces of Valyria reawakening in the world, like the dragons that Daenerys now has.
So how deep do you think this goes? Could it be as simple as George wants to introduce an actual tangible threat to Daenerys' dragons beyond, scorpion bolts, like in the show, right, where there's like mass producing scorpion bolts somehow, where it's like, okay, well, the Faceless Men will have this secret knowledge in this hidden Citadel tome, and they will know exactly how to kill a dragon, and so it won't just be as easy as Daenerys with her 3 nukes flying across Westeros, winning every fight, that there is an actual threat there, or is it? I don't know how deep can this go, and could it tie into Arya's storyline perhaps?
So my thought is, I think only one of Daenerys' dragons is probably going to survive. That's always been my read of it. I think one is probably going to be lost to the others, like we see in Beyond the Wall, hopefully less stupidly. But the other, the kind of forgot about Euron's fleet dragon, I think this is that. I think this is going to be some way that either Euron could get this knowledge, in that, like, if Euron attacks Old Town and then takes it from this Faceless Man, or if it's, like, given to Euron, or if the Faceless Men just use it for themselves once Daenerys is trying to take Westeros. I think it's going to be the way that the second dragon is removed from the story, rather than, oh, there were some boats behind this rock, and they shot my dragon.
Rest in peace, Rhaegal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is fodder for lots of theories, because I've heard people talk about
for sure
Faceless Men wanting to kill the dragons, and I've heard the phrase "death of dragons" before, so this is confirmation, I think, for a lot of people's theories. So that's really exciting. I'm pretty sure I saw this thread. Like, I just went on Reddit on my phone at a random point of the day, and it was like posted like 40 minutes ago, and I was like, "Huh, what's this about?" And the moment I saw the first line, I was like,
"You got this really early.
This is big."
Yeah. So the next two, I think, are less consequential than the ones we've done so far. We have Brienne end with the Hound fight, which I think ties into her last fight with Biter and Rorge, having the Hound helmet. Some in the comments have actually speculated that this could be something else.
Yeah, that my first instinct when I just read over that was Brienne versus Rorge wearing the Hound helmet. Because I kind of like, I want to do a video about this almost, called The Three Hounds of Westeros, where we have Sandor Clegane,
that'd be cool,
Rorge, and Lemon Cloak, and sort of like the legend of the Hound that's developing in Westeros is really cool. But yeah, it could possibly be Brienne versus Sandor himself, and that could be inspiration for
Season 4.
Yes, the finale of Season 4, where Brienne and Hound battle over Arya, and then Brienne wins, but of course at the end of Storm the Hound is kind of dying. He's wounded and Arya leaves him for dead. Of course we have the Gravedigger theory, which suggests that he was healed and rescued and he's still alive, but I think it's more likely to be Rorge. But it is interesting how George would specifically write Hound and not Rorge,
So yeah, I agree with that, and I think it does speak to that mythology that you're talking about. That's an excellent video idea.
It would be interesting.
And then the Davos thing.
I'll just quickly say, if it was meant to be a fight with Sandor, if Sandor, like, he's wounded, he's dragging himself up, and he gets into a. I don't really see what the point of that would be, though. That doesn't really mean anything to Brienne.
Neither would I, and especially with neither of the Stark girls nearby, I don't think that's.
Whereas her fighting Rorge, that's a member of the Brave Companions, right? There's some connection there. But anyway, Davos.
Yeah, so the Davos stuff is also, I think, pretty inconsequential. That being that George has said in the past that Davos' story in these books didn't really take shape until he started writing it. So we have Barrington wedding, Davos to take recaptured Arya north. Where are you going to a wedding? So the thought on this that I'd seen in the interpretation by the author of this post was that Davos's story initially was Tycho Nestoris's journey, so bringing the captured Arya north and interacting with Jon that way.
Okay. So I'm interested. Barrington wedding, the wedding between Ramsay and Jane Poole, aka Arya Stark, was supposed to take place in Barrington, wasn't it? But then
so was Davos going to be there for that?
You see, that's so interesting, because the thing, it was meant to be Barrington, but then they did it in Winterfell, and then the blizzard hit, blah, blah, blah. Or they did it in Winterfell because of the blizzard, I can't remember. But, yeah, why would... I guess maybe he's in disguise, right? He could probably just disguise himself. He kind of probably just looks like a peasant with a beard.
As long as he hides his hand, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I guess maybe we were meant to witness the wedding through him, and then we have Reek and Jane Poole escape, and then Davos rescues them both, and is like, "I'll take you up to the wall." Okay. Anyway, let's continue down.
Yeah. So
where are you going?
Jon's as well, I think, is fairly similar to the book. Albeit there is this weird quote: "Yes, we're going to lose. I can get us the armor." I don't know what armor he's referring to.
Valyrian steel armor.
Him saying he's going to kill Euron.
He's going to steal the secret formula from Euron, mass produce Valyrian steel armor, fight against the White Walkers. Oh, we were deprived in the show. Some Valyrian steel armor. Yeah, I have no idea what that means.
Giving White Walkers hugs to kill them.
Yes, we're going to lose. It's interesting how he throws in like character quotes that must be in his head. That he's like, a character has to say this.
Mm-hmm. And then Val carries a message Rattleshirt goes with. So I think this is initially Mance had a different mission. It sounds like maybe he went north of the wall with Val.
Okay. Sending a message. Oh, perhaps to Hardhome.
We'll get to Hardhome a little later. That comes up in Jon's outline at the bottom.
Okay. Okay. I haven't read that far. The whole I can stay and look brave and you will die.
It's interesting. This is, I think, the biggest, like, just question mark for me in this entire thing. 'Cause the rest is fairly, you can parse it, but this I really don't know.
Maybe he's making...
there's another question mark that we'll get to that's even more bizarre, but we'll get there.
Maybe he's making an argument for having to flee or retreat or something along those lines, where he's like, yeah, we could stay and be, heroic or whatever, but that would result in our death. I don't know. I need to stop bopping my mic.
Yeah, but the next two, the Cersei and Sansa, though there is some very interesting Sansa stuff later in this, both of these are pretty much one-to-one with Feast. This is Cersei being betrayed by the Kettleblacks, and the Kettleblacks confessing that she made them do all this bad stuff.
Okay.
And then Sansa with Littlefinger saying that Cersei's overreached and she'll be out soon.
Interesting. I was thinking about this. I was just quick to say, I was thinking about this the other day. That which specific, is it Osney? There's one specific Kettleblack that is the one who's tortured, and then reveals that he murdered the High Septim and so on. I think it's Osney.
I believe it's Osney. I believe it's the youngest brother.
But we know that the Kettleblacks are and have always been basically like triple agents, right? Working for Littlefinger, where Tyrion hired them to be double agents, but they're actually working for their father, who's a servant of Littlefinger. So I wonder whether the tortured Osney, under those conditions, would have also confessed, "Oh, I'm also working for Littlefinger," and whether that would affect anything.
I feel like that would have popped up somehow at this point.
But yes, moving on to...
Or like they'd have a warrant out for the Westerosi equivalent for Littlefinger.
Moving on to Dorne, I guess.
Yeah, this is something really cool. This is one of my favorite what ifs from this entire post. Balin versus Aerys end with blood and fire. Mountain missing teeth. So that's three pretty big things.
That sounds like like a Chinese proverb that I can't wrap my head around.
Yeah, I think it might be a haiku.
Yeah, that's it. Haiku.
Not that that's Chinese, but
yeah.
End with blood and fire. We have that's the end of the Arion story in Feast.
Yes.
Balin versus Aerys is awesome, and I think that's initially how Aerys was supposed to die, right?
Oh, I imagine so. Sir Balon, Swan of the Kingsguard, coming down to deliver the Mountain's head, I suppose. Oh, I think I get it. He's coming down to deliver the Mountain
Yeah,
Skull, and then, of course, you have the whole ASoIaF, Ariane conspiracy. They're like, no, you must stop. We have Balon and Aerys fighting. Not necessarily the death of Aerys, because I don't know if you've heard this, but one of the older ideas for Feast was that Sir Boros Blount would die of a heart attack or something and be replaced by Robert Strong, but ASoIaF would still be alive, which may imply that a Balon versus Aerys fight would result in Aerys losing but not dying necessarily.
You know what I think?
What do you think?
I think that ASoIaF's story is full of parallels to other Kingsguard, specifically during the Dance of the Dragon. And I think this duel between two Kingsguard, without spoiling things for House of the Dragon, might have a similar outcome to another duel between two Kingsguard during that era. If you catch my drift.
Yeah. But yeah, interesting parallels there to those Kingsguard you're talking about, but also, I guess, Criston Cole in terms of Aerys the Queenmaker, as opposed to the Kingmaker.
That's like the first times we hear a lot about Criston Cole is a lot in Aerys's internal monologue during his single chapter.
It is a shame we don't see more of Aerys, because that one chapter is very out of place, isn't it? That we just get a one chapter for something like...
I do love the writing in that chapter. Like Martin always says, like the human heart in conflict with itself, and that's like the chapter for that.
I would have rather we kept Aerys and maybe lose Arya, personally.
How dare you?
But then, of course, you miss out on...
one Arya Hota fan.
You miss out on the stock footage that Arya provides, so I don't know.
Exactly.
And
the mountain missing teeth, I think, is just
the skull.
It's meant as like a signal, like there's supposed to be evidence that this isn't the right head.
Yes, I do wonder, like, is it meant to be we've delivered a giant head and they're like, okay, well, it's missing all of its teeth? I don't know, it's not like they could do forensics or anything. Does it mean, like, missing a few teeth? Could it be a weird, like Qyburn needed a few of the mountain's teeth for something? Or, I don't know. That's very, very...
I think it's just meant to be a tip-off, because I think they have recountings of Oberyn's death and the fight that led to it, but they don't have, like... They know that he wouldn't have knocked out any of the mountain's teeth, and I think that it's just meant to show that, like, this is just some big guy who they decapitated.
Interesting. Okay, moving on. I see the name Kevan, which has taken me by surprise.
This Kevan, home to Casterly Rock, ready for winter.
So this isn't an epilogue. This isn't the epilogue chapter. This is a Kevan. Is this the first time we're finding out that George planned a Kevan POV that wasn't an epilogue? That was like an actual...
Kevan has had some weird shit in previous drafts as well. So this is a very early draft, being from 2003, 2004. Kevan was supposed to go missing for a point.
Oh, yes.
For like a lot of the draft.
Yes, I remember.
I think this is just prior to coming up with that.
Did we ever find out why?
The speculation, I think it was either. I think the speculation either came from the last G-Steph post or one of the Preston Jacobs videos on it. But the main speculation that I agree with is that Kevan was initially supposed to be captured by the Brotherhood under Lady Stoneheart, or at least he'd been like traveling around and trying to do something and then gotten captured. But it's unclear exactly like where Martin was going with that. I think that maybe at that point, Kevan would have been the kind of cheese in the mousetrap to get Jaime to engage with Stoneheart rather than Brienne.
Interesting.
I don't know.
And then we have...
Kevan's had a lot to... Yeah.
Then we have the
we have Tyrion boat sex.
Yeah, we were talking about witness the incest, which most likely, according to you, Daenerys and her alleged nephew, Aegon Targaryen, connecting, having sex, Tyrion witnessing it. I remember Peter Dinklage saying some stuff, right, during season 7 and 8, and basically implying that Tyrion was in love with Daenerys, like in behind-the-scenes stuff, even though that never that never came across on screen. But based on what Peter Dinklage said, it was probably in the script, but he was playing it as Tyrion, like, had fallen in love with Daenerys, basically. So maybe it's like maybe there was a similar thing, where his Tyrion would sort of latch on to Daenerys and become obsessed with her, and then maybe, I don't know, maybe he would, because we know he's going to be the evil twisted dwarf dripping poison into her ear, right, like the evil villainous hand figure. that everyone expects him to be, and so he becomes. Perhaps it would be him who'd be the driving force, that wedge between Daenerys and Aegon if they did marry. Sort of being like,
yeah.
I don't know. Witness to incest is just a very odd way of phrasing it.
It is, and it's vague. Like I'm racking my brain for other people who are related in the situation that Tyrion is currently in. It's like in this draft, both Victarion and Euron were supposed to be there. I don't think that's what this is referring to.
Oh.
And I know there's also a theory that like maybe Penny and Tyrion are related, which I don't personally buy at all.
But why would it be
someone using this as?
But the
what
phrase,
would it be witnessed to?
Yes,
It's not like he'd be witnessing himself.
Yeah. Very weird.
Yeah, I don't know.
But let's move on.
This.
Okay,
The last one is the big question mark for me. Prince of Sorrows. Sounds like he wanted to do. We've heard for so long that there's this chapter with Tyrion and the Shrouded Lord that was cut. That was just such a big thing in development that Martin had for so long, had so many ideas for, but ended up getting completely cut. And it looks like from this, it might have been from the point of view of the Prince of the Sorrows, of the Shrouded Lord.
So let's go through point by point. Like I said, this is my first time going through it, so let me see if I can piece things together. So first off, it says, eases psychic pain, 2 question marks. That's such a comfort, question mark, prophecy, question mark. That is so vague. That's so interesting.
Yeah. So my read on those ones specifically is that, like, I think this comes about before there's a John Connington point of view. And I think Martin wants to say something about what it's like to have grayscale to that extent, what the mind does. And maybe there's some element of prophecy in there revealed to those who are that far gone.
I wonder what comfort means.
Maybe it's like that. I don't know. Like, I'm picturing him doing something to, like, relieve the agony that I'm sure he is in from this disease. I'm not sure exactly what. And
then, in quotation marks, whorehouses and whores go everywhere. Obviously, that links to Tyrion's, that running motif in Tyrion's storyline where he's going around asking everyone and asking himself, where do whores go? Where is Tysha? Where is my first love? Where is my first wife? So it must be maybe Tyrion continues that conversation with the Prince of Sorrows.
Yeah.
It looks like potentially that maybe Tyrion asks, where do whores go? Because he asks that to every character. And the Prince of Sorrows' response is just, whorehouses, perhaps. And then
or whores go everywhere.
Yeah, they go everywhere. Courage. Let it. So this is an interesting phrase. Let it go, or it will become you. Let them go, will not bring you peace. Pain will, and then the attempt to kind of translate the bad handwriting says it may say keep, or something. Pain will.
Yeah, the
blank you what you have to
keep.
do.
I think it's fascinating because when I think about, like, this perspective chapter with the Shrouded Lord, I didn't expect him to be like this wise figure counseling, like, caution and restraint and, like, be careful or you're going to destroy yourself and everything around you to Tyrion.
It feels like a turning point for Tyrion's character. It feels like this is where he reaches the crossroads, and this character is the one who is almost like a temporary angel on his shoulder. Again, there are lots of theories that the Shrouded Lord, if this is the Shrouded Lord, is actually his uncle Geryon Lannister, right? And they have that, so they have that blood connection. They know each other. It could be that he's saying, listen, you're driven by revenge and your hate. Let it go. Let everything go. Revenge will not bring you peace. Go down a better path, and then Tyrion will almost be deciding, will he sort of become a better person, I guess, and let his hatred and so on go, or will he go down the dark path? Considering George has talked about Tyrion's story being a villain origin story, it does feel like he's naturally going down that villain path. But like I said, this could be a crossroads, or this could be something that would have come into play later on in the story, where perhaps Tyrion has a heel turn and realizes he's made a mistake, right? And perhaps his story ends with him trying to make up for the suffering he has caused, and maybe this chapter, this moment, comes into play later on in this story. I'm not sure. What do you think?
I think it's confirmed that Shrouded Lord equals Elsa, generally, um, just for all of the let it goes. But I think
Oh,
that it is really interesting to see
it took me
just
like
how this
5 whole
character
seconds to work.
exists in exists in Martin's like just mind. Because like I never expected that like the Prince of the Sorrows, the Shrouded Lord, maybe he's just like a chill dude. Like it doesn't seem like he's that bad of a hang. I think it's interesting to have him be the
This,
kind of voice of reason for Tyrion, where we typically think of stone men as just like
I mean,
completely
in my head,
gone.
personally, I've always thought of a chapter involving Tyrion and the Shrouded Lord as not being this scary, creepy thing where this like monstrous like king of the Stone Men is like talking to Tyrion, and it could be like high levels of threat and so on. Because I really like the idea that Jerion is the Shrouded Lord. So when people theorize about that
Yeah.
chapter, in my head, I've always seen it as a nephew and an uncle meeting after a long time, and
You know what
so
I've always seen it as that I just realized?
it what.
I've always thought of it as Riddles in the Dark, the Hobbit chapter. That's just how kind of how it's existed in my head.
Interesting. So
Just like Tyrion and
a
Gollum
lot
talking.
creepier, a lot nastier. That's interesting. But that wraps up the second page, and now we have one more page, which
Yes.
appears to be an overview of the stories, and then there are numbers next to it, which I guess implies number of chapters, right?
Yeah, this is the interesting part, or the Sansa stuff specifically is super interesting, but we'll get there. So Arya end with her first gift, 1 joy of giving, crossed out 2 mercy at the gate, 4 chapters.
Interesting. Okay. And end with her first gift. Is that implying her overall storyline ends with that?
Yeah, I think it's saying that like
Which,
the
yeah. Go on.
I think it's saying that the feast dance storyline for Arya is supposed to end with her mercy chapter. The preview chapter for the Winds of Winter.
Yeah, her first gift,
And
the
that is
gift
both
of
her first
mercy.
kill
Her
as
first
a
kill.
faceless man, and it is her giving the gift.
So joy of giving sort of implies basically learning about faceless man custom, I guess. The idea of giving the gift of death. And then, but the crossed out money at the gate. Oh, sorry, not money at the gate. Mercy
at the gate.
Mercy at the gate. What gate?
My only thought was the Bloody Gate, but I don't know. I mean, I guess Braavos isn't far from the Vale, but I don't think she would have any reason to go there.
Yeah, I kind of
the
assume
city?
that these 4 chapters are meant to be, okay, this is her training montage, right? This is her training to be an assassin. Like, I don't think it would be just one chapter and then she yeets.
This is a kind of a reach, but maybe the gate was like a name of the play initially, the Bloody Hand play.
Ah, interesting.
'Cause that's where that final murder occurs in Braavos. But I've also seen people say like River Run Gate, which is interesting. Gate to Hell.
Because I feel like if it's River Run or the Vale or something, then it implies that there's one chapter
Yeah.
of her in Braavos, and she just immediately leaves, which feels super rushed.
Yeah, that
I
wouldn't
want
be
some
the case.
chapters of her, mopping the floor. Come on, George. I want to see her mopping
Wax
and
on,
not
wax
doing
off.
anything.
Just
So
cleaning the kindly man's car.
4 chapters. So then the next overview is for Tyrion, which is 5 chapters.
Yes.
So now that I'm looking at it, so Arya's 1 end with her first gift. Tyrion cliffhanger with
You're right
Dany.
about marriage.
Yeah,
That's
so
your
Daenerys
read of marriage.
that is the
correct.
final thing. Yeah. So her big marriage at the end. Yeah, okay, cool. So cliffhanger with Daenerys. So it seems like his plan was the final Tyrion chapter is he meets Daenerys and then it's like boom, end of the book, which would have been awesome. And it does confirm that Tyrion will eventually meet Daenerys, which we kind of knew would happen anyway, right? Because of the show and where Tyrion is currently going. But captured by Sejora. Yeah, that we see that in the book.
Yep.
In Dance. Chapter 1, the Sorrows. Remind me?
Isn't that like the ruins of Valyria, if I recall? I think, or near there. I'm not
of course,
sure.
Prince of
blanking.
Sorrows.
Yeah.
There
Oh,
we
yeah,
go.
yeah, we're there.
There we go.
But it's also I like the double meaning there, and that's kind of the
Yes.
lowest part of his arc, where he's like the most depressed.
Interesting that. Okay, yeah. Oh wait, wait. I'm trying to remember. Is
Oh
this
wait, somebody in
supposed?
the chat actually said something
Yeah.
interesting about Arya. That being that
Go.
isn't the theater where she meets Polliver called the Gate or something like that.
Is it? Let's do a little bit of research. So
I'm gonna look this up too.
yeah, I'm gonna get there before you. Yes, the Gate is a Mama's Playhouse, owned by Isambaro in
Oh.
Braavos. Perfect.
Ahaha.
Nice one. I thought so. It would be.
Will in the chat. Well done.
Shout out to my boy Willie. Too good. Yeah, no, I didn't. There's no way she would have left Braavos after just one chapter, so that's incredible.
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
Sorry to interrupt. I just thought that was important to know.
Another thing I wanted to quickly say was, is this meant to be after a 5-year time skip? Because earlier on I said he scrapped it and then he was going to do Feast, and then Feast turned into 2 books, Feast and Dance. But I'm not entirely confident about whether this manuscript was written before or after the time skip. Is this meant to be after the 5 years? Or after he had scrapped the 5 years? I genuinely can't tell.
I think it's after he scrapped it.
Okay.
Because from interviews with him, he says he spent a year working on the time skip book, on what it was going to be. That year would have been 2000 to 2001. This is 2 years after that.
Yeah, a 2003 outline where he's outlining the story does feel weird, right? Where it's like, haven't you been working on this? But of course, he was working on that previous time skip. Okay.
Also, I don't think Tyrion's journey to Dany would have been something that he waited 5 years to do.
Yeah, that's true. That's why it ended up falling apart, the 5-year time skip. So it's interesting that Tyrion's story begins in the ruins of Valyria.
Yeah.
Like straight away.
There are only 4 bullet points there, and it says he's going to have 5 chapters, so maybe it's like a chapter to get there. That's my read.
Yeah. Maybe he was like writing down the ones where he has the most solid idea of what will happen in them.
I think so. Or just beats he wants to hit, even if they might happen in different chapters.
So the next one is Volantis. So in Dance, he does reach Volantis. Isn't that where he's captured, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
By Jorah, yeah. And then crossed out are 3 and 4. 3 says 3 is called the Sun. It's the
actually
sea.
No, it's the sea.
I thought he said that. Are we sure? Because the Sun makes me think Aegon, right?
So when this was initially posted, like when you sent it to me, the transcript said the sun, but it has since been amended to the sea. And the consensus in the comments.
There's a picture on the
sea.
Reddit thread for those. Again, if you're not looking at the Reddit thread for this, check out the description. There's a picture of like the way he writes letters, like lowercase and capital, all put next to the alphabet. This is insane. Okay, so it's
this is some Zodiac puzzle shit, but.
Yeah, this is some David Fincher shit. Wait, where was I? There we go. Okay, so if it's not the sun and it is the sea, then I guess that's
which
just
makes sense. He's
on a boat,
traveling on the sea with Jorah to get to Dany.
Yeah, nice. And then
like season 5.
What was number 4?
4 is Dany.
Dany, okay. Why are those crossed out? I wonder.
I don't know. Maybe he realized that they were not going to get there in time, that there wasn't enough space in the book or something.
Interesting.
We'll get to a lot more crossed out in the next one, which is Sansa.
Yes, because we've already looked at Daenerys, so let's move on to Sansa. Question mark old.
Yeah, this one.
What?
This one is interesting.
Question mark old. Resolved to be SS and take North. So that seems to be the conclusion of her story.
It's interesting. Look at it. It starts with the Winds of Winter preview chapter. This is the part that is getting into like pure Winds material. Because the first one is Tourney of the Winged Knight, which is the first preview chapter. We haven't even gotten there yet.
Oh, this is an interesting one because I've not seen this one before. I'm like,
This is the golden nugget at the bottom of this river here.
Okay, so Tourney of the Winged Knight, Sweet Robert Arryn wants to hold a tourney for basically to have his own Kingsguard, but he wants there to be 8 winged knights instead of 7 because he wants one more than the king, which is kind of funny. And there are lots of theories about what will go down there. So Tourney of Winged Knight would presumably be the chapter that introduces Harold Harding, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And then
But he's not mentioned here at all.
He's not mentioned,
second
actually.
Bullet point.
What does that one say?
Interesting.
It says
it's crossed out.
Oh, no.
It's crossed out, but it says Sweet Robin, hunting wabbits. Sweet Robin either weds or woos. I think it says weds.
Oh, no. Okay, so now this has me confused about time skip stuff.
Sweet Robin can marry an 8-year-old. Tyrion Lannister can marry a baby. Sansa
that is
can marry an
true,
8-year-old.
but also the fact that at the very top it says old. Resolved to be SS and take the North. It seems to imply he's like, she will be older, but I'm not sure how much. You know what it could be?
You know what? I think old explains why we don't get this till the Winds of Winter. I think that this is... I think he put a pin in all of this and just invented a story for Feast and Dance for Sansa.
Yes.
I think this is just
this is an old idea. He's not sure whether he wants to keep it.
Yeah.
I thought it might be related to her age. Like, by the time she's X years old, resolved to be... Which kind of just makes me think... He scrapped the time year 5 skip, but maybe he intended Feast to be a story that takes place over several years itself. Right? Because that's what that's what he wanted to do with this whole series. He wanted a trilogy that took place over decades. And the most time passes in the first book. Right? Like, over 6 months pass in that first book. And from all the other books, it's like... No, about a year passed in that first book or so.
10 minutes.
But all the other books are like... Every chapter is basically happening after the previous one. And it's like... Only a few months have passed, right? Unlike the show where they kind of make it canon that it's years passing between each season kind of thing. Or 1 year per season. But moving on. So Sweet Robin weds, that implies Sansa and Sweet Robin marrying, right?
Maybe that's the incest that Tyrion witnesses.
Tyrion ends up in the Vale. He's like, oh God. Hey, that's my wife.
He is technically married to Sansa, yeah.
Hands off my wife. Okay, so considering Harry the Heir is not mentioned, that does make me believe that his original plan was have Sansa marry Sweet Robin, then you have the whole uniting the North and the Vale as part of Littlefinger's plan, and then retaking the North, blah, blah, blah. But what is point 3? Point 3 is...
Point 3 is an interesting one.
News from WH.
You know what WH is?
WH. Give me a clue.
It's a place.
It's a place,
not
not
far
a
from where
person.
Sansa currently is.
Oh, White Harbour.
It's a place, not a person.
White Harbour.
White Harbour.
News from
and what news comes from White Harbour?
News from Wyman Manderley,
What
perhaps.
news?
Also WM.
News of someone's re-arrival, perhaps.
Perhaps a certain Stark.
Perhaps a certain little brother.
Interesting. I see. I like... Oh, yeah. I made a dumb comment.
This is the
like,
best insight we've gotten on the Davos story in like a decade.
Before we jump into that, I'll quickly say you completely missed me saying, or it could be Wyman Manderley because I misread the H as an M and then realised how stupid that was. I was like,
I did completely miss that.
I was like, wait, no,
you
White
are
Harbour.
accidentally correct.
White Harbour, ignore me. But yes, so news from White Harbour, which means that his plan was for Wyman Manderley to basically be like, hey, Sansa, guess what? Your brother's alive. I have him. Maybe the original plan was that he had him, right? He had hold of him. There wasn't a Scargos thing. Mm-hmm. I have him. Your brother's alive.
Then,
come over and help restore
that throws
him.
An interesting wrench in the plan. That's so... The structure of how Martin has written this plan is so cool, and I love it. Because at this point, we get this news from White Harbour after, supposedly, Sweet Robin is wed, probably to Sansa, and she is resolving to take the North back. She is going to rule the North, she thinks, or her and Robin. But no, her brother's back all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And there might be conflict.
Yes. I wonder how that was going to play. Because, again, the thing at the top says, the overall point of the story, how it ends, is resolved to be Sansa Stark and take the North. So I think it becomes a kind of, I will help my brother take the North with the help of Sweet Robin. Mm-hmm. And then, but then, of course, we have
not crossed out.
Yes, because Sweet Robin wedding, presumably Sansa, and news about Rickon, both of them, boom, crossed out. He's not sure about them. But then we have the words "kill the mouse," which is super.
If you've been watching on my end,
Super.
this is why I've had Shadrick's wiki article open for this entire time in another tab.
This is so
the Mad
interesting.
Mouse, who we see pop up in Feast.
Short king, 5 foot tall.
Yep,
5 feet tall.
love him for that. He's one of the knights hunting Sansa, and the thought is that I've heard some people speculate that he's a Varys agent. Have you heard this?
I think I have. I think I have actually, because doesn't he bring up the fact that Varys asked for like a big bounty for Sansa?
Yes, and also I think Varys's like older network of spies who were like children in his service were like the mice or something.
Oh,
Something to that effect.
oh
his mice.
yes, because I literally did a video about like Varys, Illyrio, and young Griff a couple of weeks ago, and when I was researching, I was like, oh yeah, in Westeros he has his little birds. When he was a spy master in Pentos, he had his little mice. So is Shadrich the Mad Mouse perhaps a former mice?
Little mice.
A former informant?
I think that's it, and I think that this shows that he might try to
So
like
cool.
steal away with Sansa at some point.
This is mind-blowing.
You know what I think it's going to be?
What is it?
It's going to be a parallel to Catelyn and the Cat's Paw.
Love a good parallel. Catelyn and the Cat's Paw.
With
Oh, I see.
yeah, in the first book, trying to defend Bran, and then
But instead of getting
Did she
saved
kill him or
by...
did-
No, a direwolf comes in. Summer saves the day. Instead of Summer, it'll be Sweet Robin jumping in and biting his neck. Like a like a feral dog.
that's it. Ripping-
Then curling
yeah,
up
or
on
it
the
could
bed.
be the fan fiction route of like maybe it's the Blackfish shows up or something.
Blackfish. Could be Lothar Brune. He's a cool guy.
Could be
Um,
Bronzion.
I'm so interested. So, yeah, I've often thought, what is the point of the Mad Mouse? Because if he is there to basically kidnap her and take her to Varys, it completely derails the Vale plot. But if he's not successful, it's like, what's the purpose? And here, George's plan is to kill him, but he has to be there for a reason. It can't just be there is someone who won Sansa. So it must be perhaps he prematurely reveals Sansa's true identity to get the plot going, or is it just another element of like danger and threat to insert into her story so that the reader doesn't get lulled into a sense of security, where it's like, oh no, someone's after her.
My read of it is that it's her like actually having to come to defend herself. Is my thought. And I think it's kind of the idea that no matter how much she tries to hide, she really can't escape the past or who she is,
And maybe that works.
and that she might need to like, defend herself. to
That
some
strengthens her resolve to become where she's like, okay, I need to embrace that I am Sansa Stark, because I'm always going to have people looking for me, even if I think I'm safe. I'm not safe. I can't just hide here. And as much as I want to be Elaine Stone because it's pretty chill and calm and better than King's Landing, I need to embrace who I truly am and take the North for Rickon and for House Stark, perhaps. Interesting. That is super.
Yeah.
That link to Varys.
If I make like if I do an in-depth,
is that in the comments?
Yeah.
Or did you like suddenly remember that?
what was that?
The link between the Mad Mouse and the fact that he's working for Varys, and Varys used to have little mice as part of his spy network in Essos. Did you remember that, or was that a theory that existed?
I remembered that.
So this is your theory that the Mad Mouse could
Oh
literally.
no, I think I saw. This is like a video that I watched
Okay.
like years ago that I forget. I think it might have been a Preston Jacobs thing where he was talking about like
Probably.
Varys agents or looking agents, but I remember agreeing with that part specifically. That was something from the depths of my
cool.
subconscious that
is
I'd
cool.
forgotten until I saw the Mad Mouse mentioned.
Okay, that sounds. This is gonna feel. I almost feel like this is.
If I do like an in-depth analysis theory video on this, it is going to be about the Sansa section here because
hyped.
this is something.
I myself might do like a fun, short little animated video, basically being like, "This was his plan for Feast," and then throw.
Oh, that'd be cool.
So yeah, throw in some little thingies. That could be fun. I don't know how successful that would be. It's a bit of a niche topic, but I'll go for it. Why not? Yeah, that's cool.
And then we have one final note.
We do. Jon. End with Hardhome. This
Pretty simple.
This has got me thinking though.
I think he was supposed to die at Hardhome, right?
Maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe if his plan was for Jon to die in this book, maybe it was he dies at Hardhome, then he's resurrected in the next book. But yeah. So the by end with Hardhome, are we saying we end with the letter from Hardhome, or we end with him going to Hardhome, which could explain where D&D got that idea from for season 5, where the original plan was
I think it has to be him going.
Jon goes to Hardhome, then out of Scrap, but they were like, oh no, we've got to keep that.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
I think it's got to be that.
That's super cool.
And I think it adds an interesting element to if that's where he is killed, maybe he does like come back as a white or something, or I don't know.
That is, it's so fascinating.
It really is.
I'm not gonna lie.
Everything here is just super. This is like the most information we've gotten. I think the person who wrote this post said at the top, this is like the most information we've gotten since like G-Steph or even since like The Forsaken. But like I put this on the level of a new sample chapter in terms of just like interesting stuff to examine.
Like I said, it had only been posted for like less than an hour, so I couldn't read the upvote, so I was just like, it's a post, but it said outline, and I was like, something's drawing me to this, and I was like, oh boy, I don't depress anyone who's watching, but I have a feeling that this could end up being the closest thing we get to the Winds of Winter. Knowing what's going to happen.
We still gotta have a little hope.
I feel like
I think we'll still get something resembling Winds at some point.
I mean, even so, none of this is confirmation because he is a gardener. So
exactly.
He could easily be like,
draft.
Nope, screw this. This happens instead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this was literally 20 years ago, if not a little more. So.
Yes, literally.
Yeah, I was 3 when this draft was written.
Oh boy, I was I was 4 or 5.
Wow.
All
right. Well, I think I'm going to take my leave. I did end up talking longer than expected.
You did.
But
this man is training to be Saul Goodman. He's at law school, and I'm dragging his ass out of class to do a stupid live stream. So thank you so much.
I dragged my own ass. In your defense, when you sent this to me, I could not focus for the rest of the class. Which
you were going crazy.
It's still pretty great. But yep, back to final studying for me. Unfortunately, enjoy the rest of the stream, folks.
Yes, I will continue to stream. Because we've only been going for an hour. I might go for half an hour or an hour more. Talk to the chat, answer some super chats, and talk more about this stuff. Yeah, but thank you for coming along, Quinn.
Of course.
And looks like Quinn will be working on a video about this outline. So I can't wait, honestly.
Yes. Yeah, excellent. Well, I will see you all soon. Subscribe to my channel if you feel like it. But yeah, again, thank you for having me, Late Lord Haven, and I will see you soon.
See you soon. He's gone. That was suspiciously professional, right? I feel that's the most professional live stream we've ever had together. Like, that was respectful. That was classy. I was like, ooh, what's going on? I feel like a proper podcaster or something. That was fun, though. Yeah. So, for those who have sort of come a bit later, if you're wondering why the screen is literally just the thumbnail of this video, it's because we're not entirely sure about the legality of displaying the outline, like pages of the outline. So we thought, better safe than sorry. Have something else as the background. But in the thread is in the description, and the thread will also be in the pinned comments once this video is over. So yeah, how are we doing, chat? Is Jamie mentioned at all? Yes, he's mentioned once in the first page. It literally just says the word blackfish. So I think the plan, at least for one of these pages, all he talks about is that there was going to be a blackfish chapter, which ended up being in Feast, right? The one where he confronts the blackfish at the gates of River Run. The parlay of sorts. You get your bees out of the chat. I don't have any bee emojis here. I'll answer a couple of super chats, I think. Thank you for the super chat from Colshot, who says, "Just marry everyone, and you win the Game of Thrones." Yes, you do. That makes me think of that. There's a video that was posted on my Patreon Discord, or a screenshot of a video or something. I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but it was a video of like how the Tyrells could have won the Game of Thrones, and it's literally on the thumbnail it says "marry everyone," and it's like, yeah, that's basically Marjorie's plot. So she's on her third husband, and there are theories she'll go on to have more. But yeah, as long as you've got a strong marriage alliance. And thank you for all the super chat from Ian Schwind, who says, "A Feast for Crows is my favourite of the series so far." Wink emoji. I want to go back to Feast because I enjoyed a lot of it on my first read through, right? Because the general idea with Feast is that, or the general perception of Feast is that most people didn't really like it on their first read through, and then when they came back to it, they liked it more and more, and then some people say it's their favourite. For me, it's still a mixed bag, but I do want to reread it. It's a mixed bag. There's stuff I love, like the Jaime stuff in Feast is incredible, but there is also, it is very ponderous. The first 3 books are so well paced, and the last 2 books are just very, very slow and ponderous, and there's lots of unnecessary meat that can be cut off. It does make it a slog sometimes. But there's some great stuff in Feast. There's so much great stuff. Oh, what was that noise? It appears you've been in this call by yourself. I'm still in the Discord call with Quinn. So I got kicked out by Discord. Okay, cool. Yeah. Chaos is a ladder. So this is just so fascinating. Every now and then we're getting more and more of these like little leaks, like manuscripts, outlines, right? We had the big one about that involved young Griff and the original Backward Dance, I think. Originally there was going to be a big scene of young Griff and Hald and Half-Maester talking about the Blackfire rebellions, but then obviously that was changed in the main book. Perhaps it was too on the nose, perhaps it was too obvious. But yeah, this confirms it doesn't confirm, but it feeds into quite a few theories. Truly is fascinating. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through the comments of this thread, and we can kind of see what ideas people have put together from this, because you've heard what I think about it, you know, as a going in blind. Quinn has had all day to think about it while sitting on his butt in law school, in law class, learning law stuff, and desperately trying to get home so he can read more about it. Callum said, "I feel like all of these leaks are perhaps moves from publishers who are trying to force George's hand." I'm not sure. I don't think this is the sort of thing that would force his hand. I don't know. But let's check out the comments. Let's see what people have to say. So, someone called G Steph said, "It's difficult to know what George originally had in mind for Daenerys' story, but now we know. It ends with dragons being loosed and her marriage." So, in here it says the dragons getting loose happens in A Dance with Dragons in Daenerys 6, and her marriage happens, so to Hisdar, happens in Daenerys 7. And then at this stage, much earlier in Dany 2, Drogon catches her up in the pit, but just puts her down in the Great Pyramid. So yeah, I can't help but think it is slightly depressing that what happens in chapter 6 and 7 and 8 and so on was supposed to be the first, the beginning of Feast. The stuff at the end of Dance was meant to be at the start of Feast. It's like, oh boy. The Gardner approach, if you strike gold with it, then you strike gold, but sometimes it can lead to the story getting too big for its own boots, you know. Someone also said that in their transcription, okay, so for those who are looking at it, again, check out the link in the description if you haven't already, but the word cut is next to Sam Tarly, and it's like, let me just double check. Yeah, it says Sam, and then Sam is scribbled out, and the word cut is next to Sam. But someone in the comments is saying because Sam is scribbled out and the word cut isn't, maybe the word cut is referring to what's underneath, which is blackfish, right? It says Jaime, blackfish, and above it is cut. So maybe he wrote a blackfish chapter with Jaime, and he was like, no, get rid of this. I don't need this anymore. I'm cutting that. That's interesting. What else? Okay. So G-Steph also said, oh wait, no, I misinterpreted. Okay. Yeah, no, this is sorry, the comments at the bottom of the thread are what the person who posted it, Zionius, is saying. He was just quoting G-Steph for saying something else. So this is the post to Zionius. These are his specific comments about what comes before. So, yes. So, although this person originally assumed that blackfish referred to the siege of Riverrun, which is what Quinn and I were talking about, there is actually another possibility. Okay. In a June 2004 draft, Jaime's plotline ends with Hildy offering to take him to the Blackfish. Hildy being a camp follower, right? A whore at the camp who is secretly working for the Brotherhood, most likely. Later, Martin changed Brienne's ending, thus she took the role instead. Okay, so the original plan is that Jaime would confront the Blackfish first. Would confront Lady Stoneheart first. So, okay. Tricked into... Okay, interesting. It could be that. As for the prologue, Zionius says that it confirms the Faceless Men's motive is or was killing dragons, right? They want the book Blood and Fire, which is about the death of dragons. And apparently in older drafts of the Feast prologue, the Faceless Men wanted to steal a glass candle. And in an abandoned fragment, Marwyn the Mage said, "The fire is locked within, needing only to be wakened. A simple spell. The Valyrians knew the power locked in dragon glass, but George became unsure of the idea. And here it appears he finally decided to abandon it for the book, because in his scribbling he writes no dragon glass candle, so he must have, no glass candle, so he must have oh no, it is dragon glass, but he must have scrapped that as a concept. Okay, interesting. Zionius goes on to say that, Brienne's fight with the Hound is likely with the fake Hound, who would be Rorge. Although, no, he's saying at this stage the fake Hound was Lemoncloak. No, it would have been Rorge at that point, not Lemoncloak. I think he's getting a bit confused. He also says, so Davos, the plot line was completely changed when Gurm started to actually write Davos. The Theon preview chapter mentioned the wedding was to be held at Barrowton. Tycho Nestoris appears to take part of Davos' role. So it looks like Davos' role was to maybe witness the wedding, in disguise perhaps, between Ramsay and, Arya Stark. Then Theon rescues Arya, aka Jane Paul, and Davos takes them both to the wall, perhaps. Maybe his role was to save them. Jon, ending with Hardhome is strange. So he says, it makes no sense not to end with Jon dead. So perhaps either he didn't die here or he dies in Hardhome. Anyway, it's now confirmed. Yes, this seems to be the confirmation that there was supposed to be a chapter where Jon goes to Hardhome and probably witnesses, the White Walkers and the Whites for the first time, personally, right? And that was adapted by Benioff and Weiss into episode 8 of season 5. And for Dorne, he simply said, we need theories about the Mountain's missing teeth. I'm still confused by that, but he says, Kevan's mysterious disappearance in the draft was noted by another user, and according to the outline, it appears George wanted him for a Rock POV. So it seems like he wanted a Kevan Lannister POV so that we could finally see Castle Rock. That's interesting. And Tyrion witnessed to incest. He doesn't know what it is. And he says, the most interesting part is Sansa. A possible plot line for the Winds of Winter, Elaine 2 and 3. Take the North appears to be from Littlefinger's words at the end of Elaine 2, but it also fits the show ending. Rest in peace, the Mad Mouse. Yes, it seemed... Because there are some theories, right, that because Littlefinger was explaining his plan to Sansa, something had to go wrong. That because he's explaining it, it can't just go down that way. because it's too obvious. George likes to tell the reader that one thing is happening, then he subverts your expectations and something else entirely happens. So that's quite... It would mix it up a bit if we had Littlefinger explaining his plot to Sansa and Sansa actually follows through with it. And we do see it. So some people were theorizing, okay, because Littlefinger has explained this, it's not going to happen, so therefore instead of taking the north, he's going to take the Riverlands. That's the classic Preston Jacobs theory about the Frey Civil War. That there'll be some kind of civil war, and then it will be exploited by Littlefinger, who invades the Riverlands and secures it under his control, right? Because he is Lord Paramount, even though he has no tangible power over it. That's a way for him to gain power and respect, to get loyalists in power, wipe out the Freys, etc. That's on Quinn's channel, right? Yeah, his video about Red Wedding 2.0 and other theories. I've got a couple of I've got a cameo appearance in that where I talk about the Frey Civil War. And then absent POVs, yeah, like the Ironborn, perhaps George didn't know how to deal with them, or they were finished. Okay, so that's what ASoIaF had to say. I'm going to dive deeper into the comments and see what other theories there are, because I just want to see what do people have to say about this. Because it could... Yeah, the Vale stuff is by far the most interesting, but... We'll see. Yeah, the top comment is, people on this forum could get a job at the CIA or the NSA as code breakers. Never underestimate the A Song of Ice and Fire fandom. Just give me something for the pain and let me die. Okay. Dany pretending to be a horse is a clear indication of madness. That being the first line is so fucking funny. The fact that the first line is just pretend it's a horse. It's like, god damn it. Someone said, I read up to Pate Steele's book and I was like, this is so fucking spoilery, lol. I'm in a real crisis. Should I read this? Yeah, I mean, if we're not getting wins, then this could be the closest thing, right? Oh, someone commented, could Brienne's mention of the Hound refer to what ended up as the Quiet Isle scene, rather than referring to Rorge wearing his mask? That's a good point. Maybe Brienne was meant to go to the Quiet Isle, and then she would have encountered the Hound. But then why would there be a fight? Because the whole point of the Hound being at the Quiet Isle is that he's given up his life of violence and brutality, and he's being a humble, mute gravedigger. So a fight breaking out between them feels kind of weird. Ah, whoops. Sansa resolves to be Sansa. Dany pretends to be a horse. You can't tell me we don't live in a simulation where the Glidus horse meme has swept through the fandom, and then we get a leak of an old outline and it literally starts with Daenerys pretends to be a horse. Or rather, pretend it's a horse. Anyway, someone else commented, some of the more crucial info this provides are Faceless Men stealing the book, the Mountain missing teeth, and the Mad Mouse being killed. I agree with that. See, I'm not sure about the Mountain one though, but... So this person says, Faceless Men stealing the book, I always thought was an interesting theory, because clearly they're looking for something. But don't think we had any hard evidence of it being a book until now. There were always theories about the Faceless Men, why are they in the Citadel? Tyrion, as Quinn said, Tyrion mentions Death of the Dragons. It put two and two together in my mind. I'm sure people have talked about it. I vaguely remember a book called Death of Dragons. But it kind of confirms, okay, the Faceless Men are looking for how to kill dragons. And is it based on their past as former slaves? The Braavosi past? Or have they been hired? Like, has Euron hired the Faceless Men to secure this? I don't know. Anyway, this person, his name is Lannister Gang, they say, do we think the Mountain missing a tooth points to the head being a total fake out early on? I guess if Doran is sending a sand snake to King's Landing, he'll find out about Robert Strong anyway soon enough, but interesting nonetheless. Yes, it could be about it being a. I don't quite understand the whole mountain skull missing teeth. You know, I don't get that. Kill the mouse is important because we see the Mad Mouse in one of Sansa's chapters, which means he already has or will figure out who she is. Yes. Elaine and Littlefinger are one step ahead, a good sign for Littlefinger fans. Yeah. You know, there are so many things in the books where on a first time read you just completely miss it. You just don't notice it. And then you see people talking about it and you're like, what? The Mad Mouse was something that I remembered. I'm kind of proud of that. That was like... because a load of people didn't realise it was the same guy, right? Like this really short ginger dude appears in the Vale and he's like, hi, I'm Sir Shadrich. And most people are just like, okay, whatever. But I read that and I was like, oh, short ginger guy. Where do I recognise him from? He's earlier in the book. He's the Mad Mouse. And I was like, yes, the Mad Mouse has found Sansa. Oh, what's going to happen? It's one of the few moments where I actually caught something quite cool on the first read. Someone said, George, I know this is 17 years old, but please work on your handwriting. I can't even talk about that. My handwriting's atrocious. Okay, someone said, my guess about the missing teeth would be that the mountain's head was going to seem wrong due to it having missing teeth rather than just being really big, weird-shaped skull. Yeah, don't know about that. Okay. Okay, that's ridiculous. Someone said, about Shadrich the Mad Mouse, I think Gurm changed his mind also about him dying and wrote something different after this draft. In fact, the draft misses an important detail. His association with Morgoth and Byron, who are the two knights that he camps with for one chapter, a Brienne chapter. They say, personally, I believe in the theory according to Shadrich, Morgoth and Byron are actually Howland Reed, the elder brother of the Quiet Isle, and Sandor Clegane in disguise. Okay, that's fucking dumb. I'm just going to ignore that. God damn it. Right. Oh, some people are talking more about the part that says witness to incest, and you know, Quinn and I were like, oh, is it boat sex? Is it Daenerys marrying Aegon, her nephew? But some people are saying, no. Tyrion is witness to incest in the sense of Tyrion basically knows that Cersei and Jaime had children, and so the people on the Iron Throne are, you know, the boy on the Iron Throne is inbred, so it could be Tyrion is acting as a propaganda piece for Daenerys when they meet, where he's like, I'm a Lannister, I know for a fact those children are bastards, right? And that further delegitimizes the claim of the late Joffrey as well as Tommen and Myrcella. He's a witness to incest. He could be like, yes, I saw them. I saw my siblings having sex. Someone called Genghis Kazoo said, I'll be honest, as someone beginning to dabble in my own writing project, seeing such half-baked notes by such a good author is really good for the imposter syndrome. Yeah, it's kind of wild just how, like, bare bones these notes are. Like, damn. Yeah, people guessing that his plan was to kill Jon at Hardhome. Yeah, and interestingly, there's no mention of Stannis in any of this. Someone in the comments made the mistake I made in like the first second when Quinn read out Balon versus Aerys. I was like, Balon Greyjoy? And then I was like, oh shit, no, it's a Balon Swan. Yeah. And I wonder whether he... George crossed out the bit that says news from White Harbour because he's like, no, I've changed my mind. I don't want I don't want to include Rickon in this. I want Sansa to take the North herself. To be, Queen in the North, perhaps. I don't know. I'm going to have to go through the... I'm going to go through the chat now. Right. What do people say? I want to know what you're saying. What's everyone thinking regarding this stuff? Can you put up Danny's face instead of George Martin's? No, you will be cursed with Jester George for the remainder of this stream. Late stage of Song of Ice and Fire feels weird because Jon and Stannis feel like they're at the end of their story, but everyone else feels like they're in a training arc. Yeah, that's a good point. That's the thing, you have so many characters and so many storylines, and you try and do a time skip, but it doesn't work with everyone. So you have different people at different stages and levels of development. So it just, it must be a nightmare to write through. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. A Theory of Ice and Fire says, I messaged earlier about Griff. Young Griff incest and young Griff being gay as a source of conflict with Dany/Arianne. So, what do you mean by that? Do you mean young Griff being gay and incest, as in young Griff and Griff? So young Griff pretends to be Griff's son, but Griff is Jon Connington, and Jon Connington is gay and in love with Rhaegar. So Tyrion being witness to incest and being on the boat and travelling to Daenerys, does he witness Jon Connington having sex with Aegon Targaryen because he's like a younger version of Rhaegar, and maybe young Griff is gay and he wants some daddy dick, and that's a source, and so it's like he's a witness to incest, and that's a source of conflict because Daenerys is like, oh, Daenerys or Ariana, whoever ends up marrying young Griff, but then he's gay, and then I don't know. I don't know. Boiled Leather read through, please, Lord Haven. God, that would hurt my throat so much. So for those who don't know, Boiled Leather edition is one of the many editions, I think it's the most popular one, of a Feast for Crows and a Dance with Dragons, expertly weaved together based on the timeline. So again, many editions, this is like the peak one. This is the one everyone talks about. If you want to experience both books as one book, you read the Boiled Leather edition. And let's be honest, it is one book. Feast and Dance is one entire book that doesn't even have a conclusion to various storylines. It's very messy. This is what happens when, unfortunately for George, I think when you get too rich and too successful, you can start saying no to your editor, and things might not always go great, Okay. Let's have a look. Vale invasion theory is elite. Yeah, it's a cool theory. I don't think it's super likely, but it is cool that the idea of Littlefinger invading the Vale and siding with some faction, like one specific faction in the phrase of war that has lots of links to the Vale. I think the Craigall faction. And then helping them, maybe helping the Tullys. Excuse me. Helping them, helping the Tullys, and securing his power over the Vale so that he has the Vale. Over the Riverlands, so he has the Vale and the Riverlands, and then of course goes on to take the North with Sansa, and he's like, boom, got them all. Yeah, the lack of Harry the Heir makes me think the original plan is for her to marry Sweet Robin, and maybe George was just like, look, the ages aren't working. Let's have an heir. Let's have a distant heir who's actually like a handsome young man for Sansa to marry and then kill off Sweet Robin. Maybe. I also agree with Diego, who said, excuse me, who said Tyrion wouldn't be useful as a propaganda piece because he's like a kingslayer and a kinslayer. So yeah, that's a good point. Haven, do you plan any Witcher content after the new Witcher book release? Oh, I mean, I do want to do Witcher content. My plan for 2024 is basically this. It's like Haven merchandise, cha-ching, but also Witcher content, Elder Scrolls content, Avatar The Last Airbender content, Dune content, in time for different things that are releasing. And with a new Witcher book releasing, I might do some more Witcher lore. That could be fun. Talking about the characters, talking about the different kingdoms, all that stuff, in my classic animated fashion. Excuse me. I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have done that right into the mic. I'm very sorry. A man's still recovering, What do I think about the theory that George is being replaced by a faceless man? Very likely. Okay, I have another question for all of you in the chat. If I could do a poll, actually. Would you be interested in me doing... Because I'm currently on like a week break, sort of just cleaning my flat, planning for the future, that stuff. Would any of you be interested in me making a short animated video going through these notes, basically explaining what they are and what they could mean? So while Quinn might have a proper in-depth analysis, my one would be more kind of, and this, and Jon Snow's thing was meant to end with Hardhome, and this was supposed to be this, and it's like a... Or not, or would you rather I did a proper lore video, like about a house history or something? Let me know in the chat. What do you think? I might do a poll. Would you like an animated video about outline notes? Yeah. Would you like an animated video about this Feast for Crows outline? My voice completely caught in my throat there. Would you like an animated video about this Feast for Crows outline? Yes or no? Vote in the poll so I can see who's interested. I'm a visual learner, so yes. I mean, that's partly why I started making these, because I'm a visual learner too, honestly. So I was like, I want to do some like visual lore. Alternate fantasy based on an early draft. Oh, very interesting. Very good idea there, Casper. Maybe. Because I do want to do a 5-year time skip alternate fantasy video at some point. Like, what if the 5-year time skip happened? Basically, try and make it work. Try and make it happen. What if these notes happened? I'm not sure. I don't think there's enough here for that. But if people do want an animated video about just explaining that, going through the notes and displaying them, then that could be fun. But that would be coming out like, I don't know when, because it's I'm on break at the moment for a week, but definitely December. I could do this kind of video for December. I'm also planning on finishing off my classic every CK3 house explained with the North, so that'll be fun. Going through every county in the North. What if Rhaegar married Cersei? Yeah, my plan is to sit down with all of the what if suggestions that people throw at me in the comments and in chats and stuff, and just like do a massive list and be like, okay, people really like the what if, let's do it. Obviously I want to bounce between house histories and what ifs and all that stuff. There's a lot to do. There's also Hot D content I want to do in time for season 2. Like I said, Avatar The Last Airbender is coming out, the live action one. It's like I could do some lore about Avatar The Last Airbender. I could do Dune lore in time for part 2. I'd have to finish the book, admittedly. Elder Scrolls lore, because that shit is crazy, so like why not? Yeah, it'd be fun. But yes, I think I'll wrap up now. It's 6:30. Yeah. Oh, let's see the poll. All right. 27 votes in. 96% of people are saying yes, we would like an animated video about the Feast for Crows outline. 4% are saying no, don't give a shit. Yeah, I got over 100 viewers. Only 27 people voted. I guess most people are like, fine either way, right? That's kind of like neither yes nor no. Try that again. Neither yes nor Jesus. Neither yes nor no. There we go. Just do your own thing. All right. I think I need to make some dinner, so why not? Thanks for watching. I guess I'll end the poll now. Thanks for watching. Potentially, you seem enthusiastic about it, so I could do an animated version of this for December, as well as a North video for December. And who knows, what kind of stuff shall I release in December? Stark video? That would take ages. But there we go. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Comment on this video once it's done to help it grow. And check out Quinn's channel if you haven't already. And I guess keep an eye out. Yes, you're all amazing. Love you all. Goodbye. Take care.